Road Atlanta sits in the pastoral Piedmont region of northeast Georgia, and its 2.5 miles of racetrack offer up a roller coaster ride for those who dare. From the side-to-side sachet of the S's to the dramatic downhill plunge of Turn 12, Road Atlanta should be called Road Adrenaline. Today, everything from nimble open-wheel racers to big-bore sedans to NASCAR stock cars will take center stage on Trackside Time Machines, presented by Mobile Environmental Solutions.
The rolling hills of Georgia, basking in sizzling sunshine. Bill Stevens here at Road Atlanta for the 41st running of the Mini Vintage Racing Classic. Glad you could join us, everybody. We've got a great half hour lined up for you. As you can see and hear, some of those valuable and vaunted vintage race cars in all of the world competing on this 2.5-mile road course. We're also going to meet some of the people who make this event so special. But right now, if you're ready, let's roll.
Groups 8 and 9 will kick things off, and this field includes ex-NASCAR stock cars from every Detroit brand, with a mixture of foreign and domestic GT cars such as Corvettes and Porsches thrown in for good measure.
Well, you're more used to seeing this gentleman flying around super speedways, but it is Awesome Bill from Dawsonville, Bill Elliott here at Road Atlanta. Little road racing this weekend.
Well, I'm trying my hand at it back again. I guess when old drivers end up somewhere, I guess this is where it is.
This has got to be a thrill for you, being out here with some of these great classic race cars and some of the drivers that have made these cars famous.
Well, you know, you've always grown up idolizing a lot of these guys, plus you've watched a lot of these cars race throughout the years, and I think that's what's neat about it. You know, to see the different, you know, to really get down and see what these cars are all about. And I've been to several of these events the last few years, and it's been absolutely blows me away at what these guys do and how hard they race. You know, even the guys getting a little bit older and the cars getting a little bit more vintage in them as well. You know, they do a very good job.
Tell us about this car that you're going to be out there with.
Well, it's just one of my old Cup cars back from the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. I think it started off life maybe as a Ford, but now it's a Dodge, and we've got a Dodge engine in it. And through that 2001, 2, 3 era, it's a good car. Carlos Gann owns the car. I've enjoyed driving it. It's a lot of fun to come out and kind of knock the rust off a little bit and do a little bit of road racing. You know, there's a lot of good cars out here, a lot of good racers, and it's just fun to go out and compete. I mean, I know you're not competing for money or a lot of prizes, but it's still, you know, when I got in racing, I didn't get in it for the money or the fame. I just got in it because I enjoy driving.
And his grin was as wide as his Dodge, even though Awesome Bill only drove in the first sprint race, taking 5th in class. One of the more exotic historic cars here at the Midi is a potent Porsche with a strong racing history.
The car's a 1977 Porsche 934. The car was originally run out on the West Coast in the IMSA Trans Am series. It's recently undergone a 4-year restoration. We tried to put the car back to the original configuration that it was when it ran in the day.
Rick acquired the 934 from a Porsche expert in California, but the car came as a do-it-yourself project.
He sent it to me out to Dayton, Ohio, in about 15 boxes and a big box of the bodywork, and it was on 4 furniture moving dollies. And we tried to use as much as the original components as we could. So it's a single turbo, it's 3.3 liter, it's 4-speed transmission. The car's capable of around 180 miles an hour on a long straightaway. We've had 4 outings in it, maybe a total of 300 miles, so it's still no new to me, and this will probably be the highest speed track I've been to with the straightaway being so long here.
Due to new car gremlins, Rick only raced in the first sprint race, where he took a class win and finished 23rd overall. Now, Porsche 934s raced all over the world, including Le Mans, which spawned the 24 hours of Lemons races that led to the Concours de Lemons car shows. Here at the Mitty, they put on a true battle of the beaters. Stay with us for more from the Mitty, including a visit with a driver who has scored over 200 victories in all sorts of races. Trackside Time Machines, presented by Mobile Environmental Solutions, will be right back.
Trackside Time Machines is presented by Mobile Environmental Solutions, the leading portable mobile paint booth.
Welcome back to Road Atlanta and the 41st running of the Mitty. We're sticking with classes 8 and 9, and our next restored race car is driven by Chris Cook, and it's a scaled-down Chevy Nova that was built and raced by an IMSA superstar from the 70s and 80s.
It's Gene Felton's old car, and I mean, talk about a road racing legend throughout the country, let alone the world for that matter. Honor to drive it. Yeah, it's a Porsche killer. I guess back in the day, that's what they built it to compete with, and Gene dominated. So as I say, just a real honor to drive this particular number 96 hot rod. Incredible car to drive. It's not a road course specific kind of car. It's just a very, very specialized, it's actually an offset late model chassis car with an incredible Ernie Elliott engine. And the way Gene and the guys built it, they manipulated the car and they made this thing unbelievably fast on a road course, but it's really not truly a specific thoroughbred road race car.
For Chris, this nasty Nova is a back-to-basics blast.
It's the most enjoyable car I've ever driven. It's so raw. The power's incredible. It doesn't have any driver aids, no traction control, no ABS. So again, it's like a heavy metal concert, man. I mean, you go there, you strap in, and you hang on. So it does require a lot of car control. I like the rawness of the car.
Well, you'd have to rate Chris's performance in the Nova as well done, as he finished second overall and won his class in the first sprint race after a hard-fought battle with Simon Gregg's Corvette. Our next racer is a man who has driven and succeeded in almost everything, and he is a Road Atlanta expert.
I ran the first professional race ever run down here and won it in 1970 in a Formula V, and I've driven pretty much everything. I tell everybody if I don't have to pedal it or push it, I'll drive it. Formula V, Super V, Trans Am cars. I won the 24-hour Daytona in the class. I got over 200 and plus wins in about everything.
John's Monte Carlo has a pretty impressive pedigree.
Andy Petrie built it, Scott Truitt drove it, and it's a dedicated road race car. You can buy one of these cars for $40,000 or $50,000, and the engines are $80,000 if you go buy a new one. So you get retired parts from the teams, and we got a young man helping me today. His father has a team in the Infinity Series. He said, well, I'll come down and help you hook that thing up. So I'm letting him hook it up.
John is already pretty well hooked up as a driver, and as he mentioned, he is well acquainted with Road Atlanta and its quirks and challenges.
It's pretty difficult, but I have so much time that it's just second nature. I mean, you got top of the hill's a blind curve. You don't know, you have to turn before you get where you're going or you're messed up. But it's, I tell everybody I've never seen a racetrack I didn't like.
John's Mitty weekend was a complete success as he took 4th overall and a class win in the first sprint and swept everything in the final race of the weekend. He just keeps adding win after win to his racing resume.
Here at the Mitty at Road Atlanta, we have the good fortune of coming across the president of historic sports car racing. It's David Hinton. This has got to be one of the major events for your organization.
Yes, it is. This is 41 years of history here, so there's not too many vintage races in the country which has been going for 41 years and still this successful.
One of the things we've been impressed with is the quality of the race cars that are here, some worth millions of dollars out there on the racetrack.
Oh yeah, these guys, they don't mess around. They've got a toy and they want to play with it, and that's kind of the unique thing about vintage racing. You can buy what your idol raced and you can go to the exactly same place that he raced that car at and You can't do that with football. You can't go to Lambeau Field and have a game of touch football with your buddies, but vintage racing, you can go and relive your idol's dreams.
Tell us a little bit about the car that you were actually out there on the racetrack with.
Well, one of my good clients, Dick York, asked me to drive his 73 BMW CSL in the 1 hour Enduro. So it's kind of nice to put on the suit and hide from everybody for an hour and go out there and have some fun. And we did good. I think we finished 7th overall and set a personal best for that race car, so I was happy.
You don't just walk the walk, you talk the talk too.
Well, it's research and development is what I call it.
Stay with us for more from the Midi, including a chance to check out a Cheetah, one of the hairiest and scariest racers from the 60s. Trackside Time Machines, presented by Mobile Environmental Solutions, will return in a moment. Welcome back to Trackside Time Machines, presented by Mobile Environmental Solutions. The next category that we'll explore here at the Midi is Group 5, comprised of big-bore historic sports cars, including Porsches, Corvettes, Camaros, and Mustangs. A fistful of these cars are prepared by Cobra Automotive, led by head honcho and Shelby GT350 driver Kurt Vogt.
Cobra Automotive got started in 1979 when I was 19 years old, and I decided to make Cobra oil pans. And we just grew from there. We always had an interest in going fast, and so we stuck our toe in the water and did our first vintage race in 1989, and it grew from there.
During a typical historic racing event, the Cobra Automotive tent functions with military precision as they keep their customers on track and up to speed.
You come and you set up your campsite and your field hospital, as I call it sometimes. You set everything up, get the cars situated, and the cars are all pre-prepped before they get here. In some respects, the race is won at the garage at home. We're thrashing on the cars all the time. These are high-maintenance cars. These are cars, the sedan cars were really cars that were meant to be used as everyday transportation, and we're not purpose-built cars. So when you put them out in a racing environment, they require a lot of maintenance.
So after all the work outside the car, how does it feel to get behind the wheel?
We all experience the same thing when we get in the car. Life is very clear and simple. We're focused on one singular thing, and that's being out in the track, and you feel like you have control over something in your life. By driving the race car, you have absolute control of what's going on, and there's nothing else in your mind but that focus point. You're constantly on edge. You're steering with the throttle. You're sliding in all the corners. You're driving these cars 101%, not 80 or 90%, in order to be competitive with them. They are a handful to drive, and I think that's part of the romance and the mystique of driving one of these cars.
Kurt finished sprint race number 1 in 6th place overall and 2nd in class behind teammate and client Gary Moore's Shelby GT350. Another unique Group 5 car at the Midi, the Cheetah, was created back in the 60s by car builder Bill Thomas with covert help from General Motors. The plan was to build a Cobra beater until a fire destroyed the factory in September of 1965.
This car, quite evidently, was built from a frame and body and parts that were left over after that fire. Got paperwork that goes back to '68. I don't view it as a continuation car, but to me it doesn't make any difference. It's just a dynamite little race car. I knew I wanted to vintage race it, so I took the original gauges and seats and the original engine, fuel-injected 65 327. Took that out, and I've got that in storage, and I converted it to a vintage race car. It took me 15 years. The car's built conservatively, and we think it's a lot of maintenance for us if we had to add oil during the race weekend. It just goes out and runs.
Jay's greatest pleasure in driving the Cheetah came last fall in Florida.
We had it down at Daytona in November and set a personal speed record for myself of somewhere in excess of 185. I looked down on the tack, and that's what it was showing coming out in NASCAR Turn 3. Of course, it picked up some speed going through the tri-oval, but I don't know how much. I'm not the fastest, but I don't think there's anybody that has more fun than I do.
An incident in qualifying limited Jay's track time, and he did not make the call for either of the Group 5 sprint races, both of which were won by Edward Savagian in a Corvette. When you look around Road Atlanta, you see gorgeous street and competition vehicles with impressive colors. But having room in a shop to spray paint has always been a problem. Until now.
Mobile Environmental Solutions was an idea to help increase production for body shops, help the used car guys do a better job at fixing the dents and the bumper jobs and fender jobs on the side to rent cars, to where now a lot of do-it-yourselfers, a lot of guys that are needing to paint, but they don't want to turn around and invest in a permanent paint booth because they're not painting it often, doing 1 or 2 cars a year. That's where this booth came to mind. You get the same production quality out of it. 37 air changes now are of this particular size. It's a 23 by 15. Currently, Mobile Environmental Solutions, the smallest booth we build is a 10 by 10 with a 9-foot ceiling for the cabinet guys, for the motorcycle guys. We build them big enough to put an Apache helicopter in, doing them over 50 feet long, 19, 20 foot wide, 19, 20 foot tall. We can build them big enough for a train. Everything's made here in the United States, so there's a good chance that if you need something bigger or smaller, we can build it for you. The best thing is that the airflow's been dialed in. We've had it tested. We went through years and years of R&D, real work R&D, to produce a cross-flow booth that performs extremely well. It gives you a clean room that normally you wouldn't have if you're working out your garage, or you're working outdoors, or you're working in the back of a lot, or working at a race car track. The best thing on pricing, depending on what size you want, is to go to our website. It's mobileenvironmentalsolutions.com. There you'll see tons of photos of different sizes. You'll see actually booth work that's been performed in them, from a bumper job to show cars to race cars to YouTube videos, how to set it up. Everything you need to know that you weren't able to find out here will be on our website at mobileenvironmentalsolutions.com.
There's still much more to come from the Midi here at Road Atlanta, because we're going to open things up with formula cars when Trackside Time Machines, presented by Mobile Environmental Solutions, returns.
Trackside Time Machines is presented by Mobile Environmental Solutions, the leading portable mobile paint booth.
Welcome back to Road Atlanta and the 41st running of the Midi. It's time now to toss all those fenders aside and turn our attention to the open wheel classes taking part here this weekend. The turnout includes everything from carbon fiber Indy Lights Lolas to a unique home built.
The Formula Junior class has been around for a long time. The first cars were front engine, and then they went to rear engine cars, and every now and then you find cars like this. This is a home built. This was built in somebody's backyard back around 1961. A lot of creativity. The body is made from an F-86 fighter jet fuel tank. It's got a Board Austin Healey Sprite engine and a Fiat gearbox. A lot of home-built components on this car. A lot of these things are one-offs. Might look a little weird to you, but I think it's beautiful.
A quick recipe for entertainment is to take a short wheelbase chassis and drop in a high horsepower V8. Those were the basics for Formula 5000, and one of the class's top competitors back in the day was a quick Kiwi named Graham McRae, whose cars carried his name.
There are about 14 of them still in existence. A lot of them are in New Zealand or Australia because there's a very popular big 5000 series down there. This car ran the Pro Series in 1973 with a driver named Gordon Mefford. Ironically, his best finish in '73 was right here at Road Atlanta, where he was 7th place in the Pro Series.
Many of the big names in professional racing in the 70s took part in Formula 5000, primarily because of the demands of the class.
The cars are fairly high horsepower, pretty lightweight, so they're a challenge to drive. Acceleration is obviously a strong point because you've got around 550 horsepower. The car class weight limit was 1350, so it's pretty good acceleration. It actually handles reasonably well. You've got a lot of weight high and in the back of the car, so you have to be mindful of that. And that, coupled with a lot of horsepower, means you've got to treat the car with a little respect in terms of on throttle, off throttle transitions. But they're in some ways like giant Formula 4s. They're not hard cars to drive. I saw these cars run at Road America in 1974 and 75. So I've always had sort of an affinity for the cars. And, you know, some of it's just fantasy. I mean, these were top-level Pro Series cars when I was a teenager, and now I come out and drive these cars. Not as fast, but I can drive the car.
Mechanical gremlins limited the McRae's track time, as Jim only competed in Sprint Race 1, where he took 9th overall and a 2nd in class. Finishing ahead of him in that race was a car that also has a professional pedigree in another classic open-wheel series.
This car was a 1980 March Formula Atlantic. Its first race was, Danny Sullivan was the driver of it. So Formula Atlantic was a stepping stone to Indy cars and Formula One. This car is only a 2-owner car. I bought it from the original owner. I found it on eBay and didn't buy it through eBay, but made contact and went out to Arizona, looked at it, brought it home.
Like many vintage drivers, Dave races for the thrill of the sport, not the glory.
The car's got a lot more potential than I've got. At 70 years old, I'm a little slower than the car is, but the car will do anything you want as long as you don't do something stupid. Fantastic traction. You've got to keep it in the rev band because it's a more of a top-end horsepower engine. It doesn't have the grunt that a V8 has. 1.6 liter, 4-valve per cylinder, 140 horsepower at about 9,000 RPM. So if you're not in the right gear at the right place, you're slogging along. But if you keep it singing, it's a lot of fun.
Dave's class win in Sprint Race 1 was the highlight of the weekend, as the March did not make the call for Race 2. The dominating car in Group 4, winning both sprint races, was the Lola T97-20 of Mark Brannon. That will drop the checkered flag on this edition of Trackside Time Machines, but we still have more to come from Road Atlanta in our next episode, when we will roll out a wide variety of vintage sports cars from the 50s all the way through the 90s. Be sure to join us.